So my name is Rachel Engmann. I'm the principal investigator on the project. I'll tell you a few words about the project, and then I'm going to invite the team members to come and tell you about the project, because this is a community project, and so our approach is a collaborative, inclusive approach to rewriting Ghanaian history. So it won't be all about, I'll warn you now, it's not going to all be about me. So I'll tell you a little story of how I came upon the project. I had grown up, so my father is a Ga. As you know, the surname Engmann is a Ga surname. So I had grown up always knowing that my ancestor was a missionary. Until 2013, I was having a conversation with my auntie. I was at her house, we were eating tatale, and she said to me, "Go to the castle and see your name on the wall." Of course, my surname is also her surname. So at that time, our president was here in the office, President Kufuor. So I came, I requested permission to come and have a look at the castle. I had always been interested in the castle. So then I went to do some archival research, and I discovered that Carl Gustav Engmann was not a missionary, he was a governor at the castle. So Carl came and was governor between 1752 to 57. He married a Ga woman called Ashokai, who was a chief's daughter. They had children, and as I say, the rest is history. So I'm calling this project Autoarchaeology because it draws upon autobiography and archaeology and anthropology. And so the way I've designed the project is there are many other people in the project that I'm going to introduce you to who have the same heritage that I do. So we are all Danish Gans. We're all direct descendants of Danish men who worked here during the transatlantic slave trade, who married Ga women. So we have, the names that you are all familiar with, right? Swanaka, Son, Richter, Engmann, Hansen. These are all these Danish Ga Euro-African families. And what's really interesting is oftentimes when we learn about history, the Euro-Africans are nowhere in the history books. So you'll probably be wondering, why archaeology? People like me argue that archaeology is a very good way for us to understand our history, because as you know, historically, Ghanaian culture is not a literate culture, meaning they didn't write their histories. So that leaves us with a few options. One is oral histories, oral traditions passed down through the generations, and then the archaeological record. So what we're doing here is we're putting together oral histories that we've all been told, including our own family histories, together with the archaeological record, together with the Danish accounts. And people like me argue that when we put all these things together, you see where the action is. If we're to rely on Danish colonial accounts, we'd have a very problematic understanding of our own history. Why? Because the Danes, they were here to trade. They weren't necessarily, unless it was in their personal accounts, all their writing was about trade. So they were not necessarily going to write and say, I've married a local woman, or I have a relationship with a local woman. We have mixed race children. They were not going to necessarily say that. Sometimes the things they also observed, they didn't understand the culture and traditions, so they observed them in a particular kind of way. So that's why we turned to archaeology. So we started the project in 2014, and what we did was we surveyed the whole. So we walked the grounds in a line. We walked from the bottom to the top, and then we walked outside, walked around the castle, walked down the banks and onto the beach. And so when we do that, we're looking for any clusters of artifacts on the ground. So we found certain clusters where there were a lot of broken artifacts on the ground, and so then what we do is we decide, okay, we're going to dig what we call a test pit, 1 meter by 1 meter, or maybe 2 meters by 2 meters, and we dig in the ground to see if there's anything in the ground. And so we did that all down the sides of the castle. What you see here started as a 1 meter by 1 meter in 2014. So when we do the test pit, we take out everything that we can. When we reach a level where nothing else is coming, then we do what we call backfill. So we basically throw all the soil back in. We keep all the artifacts to one side. But with this, 1 meter by 1 meter, we're still going. And as you can see, it's just, these are walls of foundations of houses. These are foundations and walls of houses, and the walls are going in all the different directions. So we're still going back in time. So at the moment we're in the 18th century, but we will keep going till nothing else comes back up. So I don't know if you can zoom. Can you zoom over there? So we have the foundations of houses. Some of the team members are going to come through and then tell you about particular artifacts or things that they like about the project. But, for example, we have the walls of houses. We have a kitchen area indicated by the 3 stones. Up here we have what we think was a well for fresh water. And you can see the walls here of houses. So when we dig, it's not, any old thing goes. So what we do is we dig in what we call levels. So we dig 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, and we go like that. So that's why it's a very slow process. The reason being, we don't want to mix different time periods, right? So the further down in the ground you go, the further back in time. So for example, you wouldn't want to mix something that's 100 centimeters down with something that's 10 centimeters down. Right? We don't want to mix what happened yesterday with what happened 50 years ago, with what happened 100, 200 years ago, and so forth. So Rachel. So they're going to explain to you the entire process. But the president has announced, in 16, that he wanted to turn the castle into a museum. So we're really hoping that this collection will be featured in an exhibition. So we have, because we're still working and we're still counting, we have about 180,000 artifacts at the moment. So you'll see that actually most of them are actually imported objects for obvious reasons. This was a site of trade. A PhD to be someone who is a knowledge producer. And so, many of the team members don't have, PhDs or formal educations or, training in archaeology. We trained them. But what I'm saying is they are still archaeologists. They still have a lot of knowledge to share. So I would really appreciate it if they can also have the platform to share their knowledge, because again, this is a community project. It's not only about Rachel, it's about everybody. So please, I'd be grateful if you can all allow everyone the opportunity. So everyone is prepared and they all know what they're going to say. So if you want to run.
Yehu nyama say breaking bottle, like soda bottle, would be soda in nyama one. The sense who pot for maybe a more pot in that way. The sense who smoking pipe, mostly omu isudi num way, omu isudi num tobacco in nyama. But project na kasa a community project. Like yeah for Nkofona Betina, like British Dennis one of mobile road coast and missing. And if they meet me by doors, we started 2017. I started 2014. Okay. Yeah, gardening now. The name say like yeah museum are you winning now? I be obi person like once about culture now. You never pass. Yeah, I know the local museum. Na culture ni nyama ni hu. Baby, you hu any nyama.